I look at these experiences of pioneers getting together, of people in the avant-garde, of what I think is actually a social movement. I'm going to talk about this in a bit. These are necessary sacred days for pioneers because we get tired and we get burnt out, and the minutia, which we actually know, the minutia and those one step at a time is where all the sacred movement happens, but still really, really hard. It's a lot easier to simply stand on the mountaintop and see the big picture than to actually get into, on the ground and try to paint that big picture. So these days are really, really important. They are celebratory. Whatever your religious or non-religious tradition is, every single wisdom tradition on the face of the earth has sacred days where its community comes together to remember its why. Because if you don't know, as Simon Sinek has taught us, and it's a really great YouTube video, Simon Sinek, you should look that up. If we don't remember our why, our hows and what begin to die. And so we come together and it's just why? And that's why most people don't remember anything that happens at these sorts of things. What they remember is the collegiality. What they remember is the community. What we remember is that we're not alone. And that's the most important thing to take. Whatever the ideas are, you can get the ideas in books, and you know this better than anything. But the relationships, the community, it's a community of vision and a community of practice. That is what you get here. And so I'm very, very honored to be here. I think this is a running theme because I'm on the board, and we were at a board meeting in May, and flyer comes out, Big Bang, and Big Bang, wow, I want to be at the Big Bang. And I go up to Carlos, and he's a big guy. I look up, and I go to Carlos, can I come to the Big Bang? I'll do anything you want, or I'll just go to things. Can I come to the Big Bang? And he looks at me, yeah, definitely. And next day I get, why don't you give the keynote on Thursday? And like, I didn't imagine, it didn't ask to be the keynote, I asked to be here. And that's because I want to be with idealistic and hopeful people. I want to be with people who are passionate every day, because we're all trying to change the world in our own ways. And so I need this too. I didn't expect to speak. I wanted to come and grow. I wanted to come and meet people, which I have done. I wanted to hear what I think are sacred stories that are in this room. I was in a workshop yesterday. I never even registered till this morning because I got off the plane was late, and first of all, I couldn't find this place. And I just wanted to go to a workshop to meet people, so I didn't even have my badge until this morning. And I walk in, and there were maybe 25 people in the room, and every single story had a twist and turn. That could have been, if we actually could conceptualize ourselves this way, they were sacred scripture. They were the sacred stories. Here's a sacred story. I'll do a shout out to you, Al. That's a sacred story. We just don't take ourselves seriously like that. We think the sacred stories are ones that we inherited. We don't understand that the sacred stories are the ones we're writing. And so, Yael, look at this picture. If we really do take photography seriously and art seriously, I can write you the philosophy of what it means to be human. A school that can produce this photo. So, and it's all of these, and it's all of you. So that's why I'm here, and I'm very honored. And it's funny, I speak all over the country. I probably do 200 talks a year, and I'm never nervous anymore. And like, if you came here, see this knee? This knee's shaking. It's crazy, but because I'm not a principal, and Rabbi does mean teacher, so I am a teacher, but I don't teach in the institutions, in the public schools, or the charter schools, or in this large American education system. I don't know anything about it relative to what any of you know, from the person who's been in the system 1 year to the person who's been in the system 40 years, because you're assuming you actually know what they need. You're assuming you have any idea what's going on in their lives. You assume that you know what their questions are and what their problems are. And who the hell are you really? So I call it sacred anxiety. I have sacred anxiety right now. And I thank you for being willing to listen, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit. So first of all, I never gambled. okay, in my life. It's not that I'm so prim and proper. I just didn't gamble. And last night, I finished dinner, and we're walking in the. Why do you always have to walk through the casino? What is that about? I mean, I know what that's about, but it's really not nice. Every so often, there should be a way to get to something without walking through the casino. So I'm walking through the casino, and I say to Dennis, I've never gambled. And he looks at me like, are you human? Like, where did you come from? I said, I just never. He says, come on. He puts $5 into a slot machine, and I had never done this. And I sit at the slot machine, and this is, I swear, right? You're not even supposed to swear. I put in the $5, so you get those credits, as you know. I mean, I'm describing probably what everybody knows. So it came out 20 credits, and I go, how do you do this? He says, push one credit, push this. I push this, and I win 4 credits right away. So of course, that's, in my crazy view, there's some kind of satanic person up there that says, well, this is the first time let's hook him right away. And so I go, wow, I won. Dennis goes, oh my God! That's the religious person saying, oh my God, right? He won. So then I go again, I lose. I then again, lose. Then I again, lose. He goes, no, you have to do this one, the lever. I do the lever. He says, no, do it gently. He begins to talk to the lever. Okay? He talks to the lever. He puts the lever down. I'm down to the last one. Okay? I said, okay, I'll do this. I talk to the lever. I push the lever very, very gently. And all of a sudden it goes, da, 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 da. He goes, oh my God, how much did you win? And it went to 100. So now that doesn't sound like a lot of money. It's only $25. But I said, what happened just now? He says, you won $25. I said, okay, let's get out of here. And I got the $25, and I'm giving it to Dennis, the big picture. So anybody who would like to gamble with me later, Now, second thing, my whole speech actually could just be this. So we go out to eat, and we go to this Chinese food, Noodles, or whatever it's called, dragon noodles, and we have our fortune cookies. And fortune cookies are, they're either blessings or curses, depending on what you get. And so it's me, Dennis, and Elliot. And these are the 3 we get. You tell me if it's Providence or not. And I don't mean Providence, Rhode Island, right? It's good. It was a throwaway. It's good. So, first one, never quit. Perfect, right? It was like as if that they knew who we were. Next, no man ever yet became great by imitation. Oh, that's the wisdom of Chinese cooking. Never laugh at anyone's dream. Those were the 3. And, it struck me that, it doesn't take a genius to say, I know this can apply to anyone, but here we were, talking about big picture and talking about, we're 20 years, what's the next 20 years going to look like, and where are we, and what's going on in life, and it's really important. We're dreaming very, very big. It's very important never to quit. And it's really important not to laugh at anyone's dream. How many kids' dreams, right, get laughed at? Forget about our dreams. We're big boys and girls. We're big boys and girls. All right? We can never be as hurt. We can never get as hurt as children get hurt. It's important to remember that. It's the Spider-Man rule. The more power, the more responsibility. All right? So, never laugh at anyone's dream. We have stories, whether it's in this book or in your school. Forget about that, the stories that I heard yesterday of how some of these teachers got to be teachers and some of these principals in this room got to be principals. No one could have predicted those journeys. And when those journeys took the first twist, when a small glimmer of a dream came out that I could be this and not that, I can transcend this circumstance, right? And people laughed. There were also people that said, yes, you can do it. And that's why we're here. And then no man ever yet became great by imitation. We can't be great by imitating someone else. All we could be is ourselves. But the only way we can become ourselves is in community with people who care about us and love us and can look deep within inside. who can see the big picture inside the little person. And that's actually what I want to talk about. Everybody knows we're going through a major transition globally and surely in America on just about all systems, all legacy systems, and almost all of our systems are a product of the industrial age. Okay? Now we're in this next age. We can call it the information age. We can call it the third wave. We can call it the technological age, the post-technological age, the postmodern age. We're in some moment in which all inherited legacy systems are breaking down. And those legacy systems are in health, and so we have tremendous problems within our healthcare system. Those problems are obviously in education. You have a $600 billion enterprise plus, and it's in tremendous crisis, and it's not even a blame game. We should stop making everything a moral drama. And I know I say this as a religious and spiritual leader, but not everything's a moral drama. There's just an unfolding. And it's really hard to birth new systems. And it's really hard to let go of old systems that have gotten us here. With all of our problems, they've gotten us here. One of the greatest inventions ever was the public school system. Think about all of the good things that it did. And now, like all systems, it's in trouble. And it's in crisis. But the crisis is just an opportunity for people to reimagine who they are and how we can become the next iteration. 50 years from now, big picture, right? If it doesn't keep innovating, will be small picture, because that's how life is. Okay, so it's just this new moment in history, and it's very stressful. By the way, in religion it's happening. You want to see an analogous statistic? The fastest growing religious denomination is dropout. Okay? So we worry in the big picture world about all the people both dropping out literally and who are dropping out even though they're still on the inside of the system. And we worry about that because we know what the larger purpose and goal of education is. As a religious leader, I travel around the country and I speak to religious leadership all around the country. People are so filled with anxiety about the fastest growing religious demographic in the United States is N-O-N-E. None. 30% of Americans under 32 are nuns. Right? That's not N-U-N-S. That would be a very interesting society, right? So nuns, in other words, they have no religious identity. They have no religious affiliation. It doesn't mean that they're not spiritual beings. It doesn't mean that they don't have visions of the infinite and hints of transcendence. It doesn't mean they don't say, oh my God. It just means they're not affiliated. They're no longer plugged into the institution. That's exactly, I think the statistics are so amazing. So we have tremendous dropout and boredom inside of our educational system. We have tremendous dropout and boredom inside of our religious systems. And these were great delivery systems to help people flourish as human beings. And they need to be reimagined. And it's really hard to do that. There's no magic solutions. There's no magic fixes. In fact, that's why we move to metrics so quickly. That's why we move to measuring so quickly. Because it's very painful. It's very painful to realize this is a journey. It's like an epic journey of the Israelites 40 years in the desert, if I could say, till the imagined promised land. But who wants that? I want to know exactly how many widgets I sold today. I want efficiency, not friction. Tell me, how could education be efficient? What does that mean? To say education should be efficient is to not understand education and human beings. Growth only happens with friction. Growth only happens in the inefficient moments. Learning only happens in those moments. Efficiency is when someone tells me something I already agree with, and I say, oh, I know. Education happens when there's a question that wells up inside of me and a genuine, I don't know, I want to know. That's inefficient. And then I have to go out and figure it out. I have to find the resources to figure it out. I have to find the people who can help me figure it out. I have to create systems in which mentors, I have to create internships so mentors will actually help me figure it out. I have to have advisors. That's inefficient. Human beings are inefficient. Commodities are efficient. Corporations and Walmart, thank God, are great, fine. They're efficient. Schools aren't about efficiency. So if you really think about it for a second, what's really going on here? And look, I sometimes use religious language, but I'm post-religion, okay? I am post-religion. I'm interested in what we're taking from the past to build a new future. I'm not interested in recreating the past. So I will translate all religious language, but what I see when I'm part of big picture is I see the deep underlying spiritual intuitions that are at the heart of what this is. And that was always education. That's the irony here, or the paradox. The paradox is somehow we've lost control of the language itself. I was in this room yesterday with great, amazing people. Oh my God. Charlie did it. Where's that guy? Where's that guy? Charlie. He was, you did not, it's the weirdest thing yesterday. You did nothing, everything. No. I'm not articulating it well because the lightest touch to get the most out of human beings in the room. I mean, it was, so I listen to those stories and I say, gosh, there's so much faith in the room. There's so much trust in the room. The spiritual underpinnings of what we are doing here can all be summarized in one phrase. It was the deepest spiritual insight into what a human being was in Western culture. No one thought of it until somewhere around 750 BC, 800 BC, somewhere around that. Someone had a conceptualization, an idea, a poetic insight. Who knows, maybe an LSD trip, I don't know. But they had this intuition that every single human being is of infinite value. That every single human being is unique. That every single human being is equal. And they used a poetic phrase. They said every human being is created in the image of God. Now don't let that hassle you. It was their way of saying, imagine, it was aspirational. It's so aspirational that we are centuries and centuries and centuries still away from that. Imagine a world in which every human being was of infinite value. What would our schools look like if every human being was of infinite value? We use terms like, we take learning styles very seriously. No kidding, every human being is of infinite value. We believe in multiple sorts of intelligences. No kidding, every human being is of infinite value. We customize learning. No kidding, every single human being is unique. My God, if Hollywood celebrities can get customized one-of-a-kind dresses, we can't customize learning to our children? Customized? Customized is just a market language for saying, I care so much about your uniqueness. I so know that you have infinite value, though everything in your life tells you you're not. From the advertisements that tell you you need this or you're not worth anything. From the culture that says if you don't have this, you're nothing. I know you're of infinite value. I know that you're unique. And therefore, this learning is customized to who you are right now. Tell me what's more religiously and spiritually and ethically alive than that. That's what we do. And it's every single day we do that. If a kid is of infinite value, then they're not a product. And part of what we have to do is take back the language. I was in that room with Charlie yesterday, and I heard words like this: we're non-traditional, we're alternative. How did that happen? How did what was historically the way in which we educated with mentors, we had holistic systems, enchantment and knowledge were attached until 200 years ago. How is what we're doing non-traditional and something that's less or just about 100 years old so traditional? How did that happen? No, that's what's non-traditional. It's brand new. This 100-year massification of education is brand new. It did great stuff, but it's brand new. You want to know what's really, really traditional? The mentor-mentee relationship. That's traditional. It goes back to Moses and Joshua. That's how traditional it is. We're not radicals, or we're radicals in the deepest sense of what radical means is getting to the root. We are at the root. How did we become alternative? No. This is what's normative. Just people have to catch up. This is what's normative. And we all know it, and people do know it. Okay? People do know that students aren't products or outcomes, that teachers aren't technicians or compliant workers. And make no mistake, what is happening in the culture for a variety of reasons, that is, education is fundamentally a political spiritual act. It's a political act. It's not some nice little thing in which we help people. It is a radical political act. And the marketization of education and the commodification of education is being structured. There's no conspiracies here, but it's being structured for real reasons of how the society should look. Turning teachers into compliant servants. Not sacred servants, but compliant servants who measure clearly with a common core, right, is a way of ensuring a less than lively democracy. Let me put it that way. So this isn't a game. And that's why, wait, you haven't seen any resistance yet. We are so early in the drama, you see no resistance. Teaching children to question is the single most revolutionary act a society could do. And that's why in hierarchical societies, it's the elders who ask the children questions that the children have to answer appropriately. And in democratic societies, children are freed up to ask any questions they want of elders. And what elders have to say is, I don't know, let's go figure it out. So we are talking about a radical political act to be able to educate in the big picture way. When you begin to see the bigger picture in life, you question convention. When you begin to see the bigger picture in life, you question the assumptions of a society. When you begin to see the bigger picture in life, you challenge that which you inherit. That's why most companies, I'm doing a lot of work in the innovation space now for a variety of reasons. I've studied with Clay Christensen, as Andrew knows, and I'm going around and speaking in innovation spaces. And the most amazing thing is that is that basically you meet these innovation spaces, it's middle management in companies, and it's 500 middle management people coming to learn how to be innovators after having spent 50 years being culturized into not being innovators. And they have been literally, if you test people the way we test them to make sure that they answer the questions the way we want them to, you cannot produce innovators. You can't, it's not, I understand why we did it. We had to get people working in a factory the right way. I get it. Thank God we did it. Moving people from farms to industry was a very, very big job. We did it. Getting people as literate as we did, we got people literate. Tremendous job. But if you want innovation, you want creativity, you want wonder, you want amazement, it's about questions. It's about process. And process doesn't mean no product. So we know that students aren't products or outcomes. We know that teachers aren't technicians or compliant workers. We understand that education isn't about efficiency or a race to the top. By the way, I'm not judging motivation, but the metaphors we use create the world. We cannot allow those metaphors even if they are well motivated. Life isn't about a race to the top. And education isn't about a race to the top. And we have to attack those metaphors without attacking the person, and without attacking the motivation. Genuine education is not some competitive race to the top. It's a collaboration to get to the promised land. And these are very, very, very different structures. A race to the top produces one structure. A collaboration of self-discovery and other discovery, it creates another system. So these are very, very, very serious debates at the heart of the society right now. And schools aren't marketplaces, and they're not warehouses, and they're not factories. And this may not apply to most of you, but if you're in New York City, schools are not prisons. I understand probably a lot of places it's not like that, but you should see what the news is. It's not funny that they're worse than the airport. It's really, think about what it does to a human being. And look, as a rabbi, I'm overly sensitive right now to the killing of children. Because there's profound guilt and shame I have as an 8th generation rabbi about how I'm implicated in the murder and killing of children. Whatever is the justifications. But when 5th graders have to walk through machines, and because it's so violent, violence is a symptom, it's not a cause. When you treat people like they have infinite value, when you treat people as genuine, unique beings, when you care and tend, not grade and punish, you will not have guns in the school. So we have to say, no, schools aren't warehouses and marketplaces and factories and prisons. Schools are sacred spaces. Schools are sanctuaries. By the way, in the old days, they were. Your schools were attached to the churches. The schools were attached to the synagogues. And I understand why we had to separate religion and education, because religion got stupid. I got that, okay? I got that. But to separate is different, to differentiate is different than separating. Schools are places of enchantment. I know I haven't visited enough schools, and I intend to. Tulsa, I'm coming, and I know I'm coming, and San Diego, I'm going to come. I'm going to visit at least 2 or 3 schools this year. But when I go to the Met, and I know the Met is the the mothership, but when I go there, the stories I hear, the way people talk about each other, the way they talk to each other, these are the cultures that when you're in religious communities, we are teaching about that we hope happened. the kinds of spaces, and we can't give up on that. Classrooms are like, you know where they really are? They're, if we can get it right, when we get it right, we all know. You have all experienced when some kid has that aha. And it's not a aha about a piece of data. The piece of data is simply a piece of the recipe for the aha. When they have that aha about who they are, what they can do, you go, oh my God. Maybe what we should do is actually spend less time in the so-called sacred spaces and take more seriously where we say, oh my God. How many times in a year with your kids do you say, oh my God? Or do you go home and tell your partner, lover, spouse, I got to tell you the story about this kid. We have to chant those stories. That's what we have to do. We have to chant the stories, a sacred chant. And today at 10 o'clock, I can't tell you what happened. There are no words to express it. And if there are no words to express it, that means it's a holy story. And we have to take stories seriously. Okay? I appreciate data. But stories are the soul of data. Data is soulless stories. And we have to take that really seriously. We have to take that really, really, really seriously. Gosh, there's so many things that I want to say. Rigor. Rigor. That's another word. So far I have non-traditional. No, we're not allowed. No, we're traditional. When they say, what do you mean you're traditional? Then you tell them, here's how we're traditional. You say we're normative. Why? Who else is like you? Oh no, everyone's going to be like us. Rigor, that's the new big word. I Google stuff in education now before I come and give a speech. I see the word rigor and rigorous seems to be like this repeating word. I say, okay, I got it. I'm okay. I just want to understand. I just want to understand this. Tell me what's more rigorous. It seems to me it's much easier to test, pass, fail than invest in human development. What's more rigorous? You know what tests are? Tests are to education like indulgences are to religion. You know what indulgence is? You don't know what indulgence is. Indulgence, I mean, it's every religion has them. Indulgence is basically you pay off God with some ritual so that you can cleanse yourself, as opposed to actually correcting the real thing. So it's an indulgence. Okay? Protestants hated that about Catholics, right? But it's not just a Catholic thing. We all use indulgences. Philanthropists give money very often as an indulgence. Indulgences are happening everywhere. We have indulgences too. But tests are to education, like indulgences are to religion. Tell me, what takes more rigor? To measure retention of facts, or to engage in authentic assessment that emerges from relationship? Just tell me what's more rigorous. I'll go either way. Just tell me what's more rigorous. What you're not allowed to do is to tell me that they control rigor and somehow we're not rigorous. That you're not allowed to do. Because that's bad faith. What's easier? To decide that a 64 is failure and a 65 is passing? Or to understand the power of failure? Just tell me what's more rigorous. What's more rigorous? To teach a subject siloed to a class that's siloed? Or to teach in a deeply integrative way every subject based on, connected to the real life passions and interests and needs of the human being in front of us? Just tell me what's more rigorous. It's a lot more rigorous to have to deal with the habits of the mind and the habits of the heart than anything happening in the school reform movements. And we have to take back that word rigor. Because using words is really important. If we cannot define and we cannot argue for the deep rigorousness that we're doing, it'll make our jobs harder. The fact is that our culture actually is guilty of not understanding the grandeur of the kids in front of us. It's not that we don't have standards. It's that the standards communities are too low for the kids that we have. It's like I feel like sometimes I'm living in an Orwellian moment. It's like everything is backwards. You know, there was a great mystic sage in the 1800s who said one day a storm would come through the world and it would knock over everything, and when things were put back together, all the labels would be on things on the wrong. Salt would be pepper, and pepper would be salt. Sugar would be, and all the labels on all of the on everything would be off. I feel that's what we have on all of this. Actually, big picture learning and our method and our practices are far more rigorous than anything we're seeing out there. And so we have to take that back. Student engagement and all these words and customized learning and connecting knowledge to life. These are very, very difficult things to do, especially after 250 years, 150 years, 100 years of disconnecting them. These are very, very difficult things to do. They take rigor. They take practice. You know, the word practice is a very, very important religious word. Education is a sacred practice. Teachers are Michelangelos when they do their work well. Michelangelo looks out and sees deep within the stone, beyond the surface, and is able to reveal the work of art. That's what we do. That's what we do. There's nothing more rigorous than trusting. There's nothing more rigorous than caring. There's nothing more rigorous than going on a journey, a real journey with people as they grow and develop and evolve. There's nothing more rigorous than that. Two more things. This is for those who are interested in a little bit of a meta take. I think there's something going on here, and I want to explore this with anybody who's interested in the kind of the philosophy of big picture. I think that and it came off, it was actually this morning I was thinking about it, so it's a little new, and that is that one of the things that makes big picture very rigorous, but I don't think we mark it appropriately, is we're actually holding together polarities that have gotten separated. And here's polarities are opposite, these opposite things. And here's what I mean. Okay, we're able to hold together real self-determination and agency of an individual human being, the authority and autonomy and power of an individual human being. And we hold that together with a healthy hierarchy. In traditional communities, you have hierarchy without autonomy. In progressive communities, very often you have autonomy without hierarchy. There's something about what big picture is able to do. There's something about big picture that is holding together individual freedom and the radical uniqueness of this individual's journey and group needs and community and webs of relationships. That's very, very hard. Conservatives generally are good at community. Liberals are generally very good at individual rights. But there's something about the big picture method that holds these things together. There's something about the big picture method that holds empathy and excellence together. There's a there's a sloppy empathy that produces self-esteem based on nothing. And there's a kind of excellence that destroys the human spirit. And there's something about holding together empathy and excellence that the big picture system, the big picture method and practice does. Another way of putting that is there's a holding together of affirmation and expectations. It's easy to have expectations. That's simple. And it's easy to affirm. That's simple. But to affirm and have expectations at the exact same time and know which to valence and weigh which at what moment in front of the human being, that's really, it is a practice, it is an art, but it can be taught. But it cannot be taught in a book. It can only be apprenticed. There's a holding together of what I'll call play and practice. You know, in the playground, you can watch when kids play, if you are sophisticated, you see they're playing, they're having fun, it's spontaneous, but they're repeating patterns because they're trying to get good at something. But if you said, practice this, do this again, they don't even know what you're talking about. They're just playing. In a healthy educational environment, play and practice are the same. They don't get posed at one another. Process and product. We cannot allow the non-traditional forms of education, which are only 100 years old, to tell us we're only about process. We can't buy into their divisions. Process is product, and product is process. And product without process is a widget. And process without product doesn't do anything. Change and stability. It's so interesting. You think that you're about change and flexibility, and yes, that's one of the beauties of the big picture method. But actually, it's about so much. You know what your stability is? Go to the Met and you'll see how it looks, how it's clean, how it's taken care of. The stability in the relationships. There's stability and change. You don't allow those to split apart. And of course, the cognitive and the social and, the affective or the emotional. We're not allowing those to split apart. That's the big picture method. And you could keep a checklist on it. And it's profound. And it's deeply traditional. So last thing. Jeffrey Moore wrote a book on, I forget the name right now, but it's on the dynamics or the diffusion of innovation. And I want everybody to listen carefully, and especially superintendents in the room. Any superintendents in the room? Okay, superintendents. I probably must speak, there's one in the room. I'm speaking to the superintendents right now more than anybody. Okay? Because everybody is a hero, but you probably are the heroes of the heroes. Here's the dynamics of diffusion, okay? And this will mitigate your frustrations, disappointments, anxieties. I promise, if you just put this up on your board, it's the diffusion of innovation, and it is true of technology, and it's even more true of a social justice, civil rights movement. That's what this is. This is not a little game. This is a social justice movement. This is a civil rights movement. And social change movements all have this dynamic. There are, and he's done hundreds of studies on this. Innovators are about 2.5% of the population in any individual thing that we're trying to innovate are what we call innovators. That's Elliot and Dennis. So 2.5%, even in this room, are the innovators of the innovators. Then there are what are called the early adopters, and that's about 13.5%. Then it's the early majority. I'm going to go through it and then about 34%. Then there's the late majority, which is another 34%. And then there's what he calls the laggards, which is 16%. I don't think we should use the word laggards. I think what we should use is they're holding on to something that we have to figure out, we need to embrace. 2.5% are innovators. The goal of the innovators is to influence the early adopters. Early adopters should not be fighting with laggards. Early adopters are modeling for the early majority. And if you know who you are in the drama, you know what your anxiety will be. Here's what it means to be an innovator or an early adopter. Why don't they get it? How many people ever feel that? Why don't they get it? I don't understand. And you want to go like this, you know? But it turns out that's not how people learn. And what we have to use is, if you want to be authentic and genuine, you have to use the big picture learning method in social change. It's not a little game to educate children. It's a method of living. And that's what you know about education. Education isn't this little thing we do here. Most of education doesn't happen here. It happens here. So the big picture method has to be used as part of the practice of the social change that we want. So sometimes you want to go like this, but then you remember, oh, yes, this person who is blocking every single thing that I want to do is of infinite value. They're unique. And that does affect you. So it turns out, if you think about it this way, 20 years ago, we're almost at the 20-year anniversary, 20 years ago, if I had taken Dennis and Elliot, well, I guess taking Andrew and Carlos would have been funny 20 years ago, but let's say they were there too, and a few of you, and described this right here now. And described how many schools there were in the variety of ways that were related to big picture. If I showed you this sacred document, and I showed you this, and described all the accomplishments of the last 20 years ago, honestly, Dennis, Elliot, honestly, okay, would you be happy? If 20, not now you're not happy, you're not allowed to be happy, but 20 years ago, if I described this, you'd be blown away. And Carlos and Andrew, 20 years ago, if I told you, look what you're inheriting. And some of you who told your stories last night, 20 years ago, almost everyone in that room 20 years ago was on a life path that was radically different and not as healthy. 20 years. It's nothing. It's nothing. It took 40 years for the Israelites to get to the promised land. And here's the most important piece of that. The most important part of that scriptural story is that the person with the dream, Moses, didn't make it. Moses dies on the mountaintop. So I want to ask you, Moses, success or failure? There's your metric. Pass or fail? He did not realize his dream. Success or failure? Success. Because the wisdom of this story is, if you realize you dream, you've dreamt too small. If you can accomplish your dream, what kind of dream really is it? If you could sow the seeds, and sometimes, as the psalmist says, we sow the seeds with tears so that we can harvest with joy. So we are sowing tears. We are sowing seeds of tears, but we will harvest of joy. But it won't be we. It'll be our children, and it'll be our children's children. Because even when the people of Israel got into the promised land, they realized that it wasn't all that was promised. They had a lot of work to do even in the promised land. But what Moses did get was the view from the mountaintop. Or he got the big picture. And if you get the big picture, oh my God, you can stay in the game and you can be all in. And that's my hope and my prayer and my blessing, that we stay in the game, that we stay all in, and that every so often we get a view of the big picture. Thank you very much.